Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. I'm Jonathan Freedman, joined alongside me with Evan Macedo, who is Vice President of Finance and Operations at Sapers and Wallack. Well, good to see you, Evan.
Good to see you, Jonathan. It's always a pleasure to be on the show. We've been doing this for many years, and it amazes me how much we continue to learn and develop with all these wonderful guests that we have on.
Absolutely. Our mission is to bring stories of entrepreneurship, and you want to introduce our next guest with that said?
Absolutely. So I have the pleasure of introducing Andrew Bostian, Managing Director of Scout Valuation. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Hey, Andrew, it's a pleasure having you on. Why don't you tell us a little bit, tell our listeners a little bit about Scout, what it is that you guys focus on, Scout Valuations.
Sure. So Scout Valuations was started in 2018 by my business partner, Mark Campbell. The whole vision behind Scout Valuations, his idea behind it was scouts go out and they map terrain. They want to get a picture of reality. They want to identify obstacles. So it's with that kind of scout mindset that we try to get that accurate picture of reality when it comes to business valuations. And Mark and I were partners at another firm, and I just joined with him in November 2024 because I really liked that mission. So, in short, we prepare business valuations for all matter of purposes. A lot of it is business planning, succession planning for business owners. We do a lot of estate and gift tax work, and quite a bit of transactional type stuff, and litigation too.
So, valuations is a wide open field, and I think you've just touched on a couple of reasons why people might perform a valuation. I don't know what the stats are in terms of, how many businesses out there actually go through a valuation. But it's not a one size fits all. There's a lot of elements towards establishing a valuation and for various purposes. Why don't you, if you can, give us a little bit of context on, what those inflection points or those situations might be where business might call on somebody such as yourself.
Yeah, sure. So we're not business brokers at Scout Valuations, so we don't help close deals. We don't go out and find buyers for companies, but where we come in on the transactional front might be someone might have received an offer out of the blue, and that happens a lot with business owners, particularly since there's a lot of business owners going through transition right now. So where we come in is we sit down with them, we look through their books and records, their financials, have an interview with them to get to know the business more, and we vet that offer for them. That might be one example on the transactional side. Or for loan underwriting, a bank needs to do a loan underwriting process to do a risk analysis on a commercial loan they might be giving out. So we do valuations for that. One of my favorite projects was for a limited partner of a Major League Baseball team. Was referred to me by an attorney. He was a CEO of a local company, and I was kind of blown away that he was calling me because it was a big local company, and he's a limited partner of a Major League Baseball team. But he was putting his ownership into a trust, and he needed to get a valuation of that limited partnership interest to go on his gift tax return. So I was thrilled to do that job. I'm a big baseball fan. So that's been to date my favorite project, to get a little peek behind the curtains of a Major League Baseball team. So those are typical situations, and I think I also mentioned litigation. We also do like shareholder disputes when business partners aren't getting along. An operating agreement typically calls for a business valuation. Same with marital situations. If there's someone going through a divorce and they have a business interest, that's a marital asset as well, and we get involved in that.
Great. It's fascinating because I think people often think about valuation as a very straightforward a process or approach. You hear, oh, EBITDA, our industry is 3 to 5 times, therefore our value is X. It's a pretty simplistic view of how valuation is done, and obviously you guys take a lot of elements into consideration when conducting a valuation, and really, if I'm not mistaken, look at as an independent voice. We don't know you. We have no bias towards you. We have no bias towards your industry. We take all the facts and we come up with a figure or a range of figures based on those elements, which I think is very different from sort of that back of the napkin quick industry analysis. One time's earnings. Well, great, but what about this, this, and this? So.
Right. You hit it on the head. I can't tell you the number of times I've gotten a call where someone's like, I just need a quick and dirty back of the napkin valuation. And I was like, I can't do that. One, our industry standards don't allow us to do that. I do have an accredited senior appraiser with the American Society of Appraisers. So I can't do a back of the napkin, but it won't do you any good to do a back of the napkin. Sure, I can look at to see what the multiples are for you and pull that, but I have to also know what the risks are for your company, what the growth prospects of that company is. And that's what something we take a lot of pride in at Scout Valuations for sure, is really to getting to know the business owners through a management interview, because the numbers only tell you so much. We might see some tremendous growth, but is that growth going to plateau? So you don't know some of those things until you really talk to the business owner. So there is a lot more than just the crunching the numbers part of it. And that maybe that's what makes our job safe from the AI bots, but we'll see. They'll make our
Time will
lives a little
tell.
bit easier, but
And, and Andrew, that,
Well,
that
well,
that's a piece I wanted to kind of dive a little bit deeper in. People look at valuations strictly as the numbers, but there's also the storytelling aspect of it. And the storytelling aspect is what sometimes sets a good valuation professional aside from a bad valuation professional. When you're looking at these businesses and you're really trying to, maybe if someone's trying to maximize or maybe if they're trying to minimize their valuation depending on what their business goal is, how are you focusing on the storytelling aspect to get the most out of it for your clients?
and that's really my favorite part of the job, is the storytelling part of it. I have a liberal arts background, so I had an economics major, but also had to go through all of the English classes and all the paper writing and stuff like that. And I found that that was a strength of mine. I mean, valuation reports follow a certain template usually, and you can tell when someone's followed just a boilerplate template. But telling the story to me is something that I take pride in, and because I want the business owner to have a lot of pride in their business. Also, harkening back to college, I was reading reading a book called "Working" by Studs Terkel, and the premise is everyone should have something to point to and be proud of. And that's really what I want to show business owners if they're in part of a succession planning, is have a story told for them that they can be proud of and point to, and look back on their careers and all the blood, sweat, and tears and what kept them up at night. But you also mentioned you sometimes you want something that has a lower value, be it for tax purposes or litigation purposes. And all of our reports have belts and suspenders to support the value, but we really need to have the language behind it to help support that cause too.
how much, and I don't know if this is a loaded question, but given that we're in a what appears to be some volatility in the markets in general, how much of a lag is there when you see valuations changing in private companies from the public markets? I imagine there's some mirroring, but it may take some time for that to shake out.
Yeah, so I think just a week or so ago, we started to see in one of the databases that we have access to, multiples for transactions that closed in the fourth quarter of last year and fourth quarter of 2024. And the trend was that the multiples were increasing. So 2019 multiples were pretty good. You kind of saw a downturn to 2022 and starting a slow climb back to multiples in 2024. But you're right. There is some uncertainty in the market. There's questions about tariffs and what role that will have on many companies. Interest rates are high, or higher than we're used to, and we're not sure where those are going to go. And that plays a role in the valuation world as well. And we're certainly seeing volatility in the public markets. So we're not probably going to see that in the multiples quite yet, that we have access to, but that's also something that we take into account if we're valuing something as of the present day. We're going to have a look at the economy and what role it's playing on a company, in the factor of how we build up a discount rate, or how we select certain multiples.
Yeah, certainly living in interesting times, and must keep you guys on your toes every day to try and figure out, what the impact of current affairs or the marketplace is, et cetera, on the companies that you're valuing. So
Right. Just as we're getting out of like the window of COVID and its impact on companies, new things are coming up that kind of throws a little bit of a curveball our way and how we handle valuations for sure.
yeah, any particular industries that you guys focus in? Any industry verticals or?
Yeah, we call ourselves generalists for sure. If it has a cash flow, we can value it. Um, but there are certain industries that I have a lot of experience in. I've done quite a bit of work in the manufacturing, distribution, and retail side of things. When I first started preparing business valuations, I was working for a large multinational food and beverage company. So I was doing a lot of plant tours, watching how they make things, and then also how they distribute things. So that's an area that I've always taken a lot of interest in. Always amazed at how things are made. Like there's one in Massachusetts who makes whiteboards for classrooms, and I never knew how that was made. So sometimes I just sit there, I was like, oh, that's how things are made.
Yeah,
And so
it's
I love valuing manufacturing companies for sure. And same with construction, going back to the how you make things, how you get things from the ground up. So I've got quite a quite in those industries for sure. But we're pretty industry. We've covered quite a bit, like Major League
are
Baseball teams.
what about companies, pre-money stage companies that have some interesting, market capability, but haven't yet, turned positive cash flow? I mean, those must make for some challenging valuations. And
Yeah, I just finished one late last week, and it was a challenge because they are showing tremendous growth, and they think they're going to have continuous growth, and there's certain market factors that may support that. But also, so valuations are forward looking, and value preparing valuations is has a lot of analyst judgment. And again, where the scout mindset comes in, where we kind of look at all the facts and have the belts and suspenders to support our opinions. But really, who knows? When you have a startup company, you just got to do best with the data that you have. We might have a higher discount rate if we're having a high cash flow projection. So it is that certainly is a challenge, but something that we
well,
embrace.
well, it's fascinating. I would imagine the age-old challenge or the age-old tenant holds that every buyer thinks it's worth less and every seller thinks it's worth more.
Yeah,
And so you
100%.
guys have to reconcile that some way.
Yep. Yeah, and
Uh,
then that's something also I used to have a thin skin when it came to people questioning my opinions of value, but now I've just kind of embraced it and said, okay, that's an interesting point. I never really thought of it that way. So that's always helpful to use in my toolbox going forward. But you said it right. Buyer wants to sell it. The buyer wants to buy it for low, and seller wants to sell it for high, and they all have the reasons why.
Absolutely. Andrew, if people want to reach out to you, learn more about Scout, talk to you about valuations, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, the best way is over email. I can be reached at a Bostian, and that's spelled Bostian at scoutvaluations.com. Or you can call my number. I'm at 617-604-2689. Email is probably best though.
Wonderful. Our guest has been Andrew Bostian, Managing Director of Scout Valuations, and I've been joined by Evan Macedo of Sapers and Wallack. It's been a pleasure having you on Radio Entrepreneurs,
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
and we'll be right back with another segment on Radio Entrepreneurs.